There was a week in college for me when I was totally exhausted. And the reason I was so tired isn't because I was up late studying or out partying late at night. It wasn't anything about that. The reason I was so tired is because I have this condition called asthma, where it can make it difficult to breathe. But when I was at college, I did not bring my inhaler with me. And it wasn't so bad where I had to go to the hospital or the emergency room to get treated, but it was bad enough where each breath I took was a little more difficult than it should have been. And especially at night, remember that feeling of having to work for each breath. And it left me exhausted because I had a condition that was unaddressed. The same is true of all of us. We can go through times in life when we get exhausted because of something that we're not addressing. And so often that something is actually a sin that God tells us to get rid of. I think of some sins that can be so exhausting. For example, judgmentalism. It is so exhausting to always be right and to always point the finger at others and try to find how they're missing the mark. That is so exhausting. It's also exhausting to fail to forgive people and hold on to grudges. And when you hold a grudge, it saps the energy out of you and it can leave you exhausted. Then there's the sin of idolatry in all of its forms, which basically means you're holding on to something, expecting it to give you what only God can give. But all it leaves you is tired and exhausted because it doesn't give you what only God can provide. And there's many other sins we could talk about, but you can see how unaddressed sin can leave you more tired than maybe you even thought. So take these words of encouragement from Hebrews chapter 12, where it gives us this command, but also this invitation to find a better version of rest. It says, "Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." You might not even be aware of how tired your sin is causing you to be. I know that was the case for me in college. When I actually got my inhaler in the mail from my parents, I opened it up and I used it, and I'll never forget the feeling. I had forgotten what a full, deep breath of air felt like. And the feeling of freedom was incredible. And I have a question for you. Have you been holding on to a sin, a grudge, an idolatry, some other thing that has left you feeling tired and you might not even be aware of it? Well, the truth that we need to remember for better rest is simply this: drop what doesn't belong. Drop the sin that God has been inviting you to let go of. It's doing nothing but robbing you of energy and robbing Him of glory. And the good news I can extend to you today is that the burden you're carrying because of your sin is a burden that Jesus has already carried for you. And He invites you. Would you let it down? Would you drop what doesn't belong? And when you can embrace that truth about rest, it unlocks a version of freedom that maybe you've never experienced. To say, "Here, God, here is my sin that I've been holding on to. It's been robbing me of energy and robbing you of glory. Would you forgive it?" And when you hear those words, "You are forgiven," that freedom is unlike anything else you can experience in this life. And so that's the fourth truth for better rest. Drop what doesn't belong and trust God to carry the burden that you and I were never intended to carry.